There is only now, my friends, so let's run with it. Let's move faster as we sink into the deep of the hill in inner space where I am located here, looking off into the grand vista of the Windows operating system. Welcome back, Artist Journal, February 21st, 2025, broadcasting from somewhere in my mind. The nervous system has many mysteries, and I am embedded in that mystery right now, talking to you, my friends. So, my name's Adrian Pocobelli, February 21st, 2025, just in case you forgot. So, what do we have here? We have another ordinal here, another work put on Bitcoin. This time, you may recognize the artist, Canik Zapata. Canik Zapata putting a work out on, I think, using Gamma platform, and I'm going to try tomorrow for the Bitcoin video. It's way overdue. I flew yesterday. I should be more jet-lagged, but I had a pretty huge sleep, so I should be all right. But I'm going to really try for tomorrow, Sunday, latest, to put out the Bitcoin video. So this weekend, because fees are starting to creep up a little bit, and I don't want people to miss the opportunity if you're interested and you just don't know how, because, you know, it gets exponential, the fees, right? So there is a window of opportunity. They're still at 2 V-bytes, where you almost need to put 3 to get it through rather than 1 or 2. And so we'll look at that later. So I'll just say, isn't this interesting? Canik Zapata on Bitcoin, and I think pretty rad. So again, the Cellular automata, right? We seem to see the technique we're seeing on Objkt, on the Tezos blockchain, with the collectors and artists of, Web3 and this sort of thing. Here we see a similar take, but done, it almost looks like, is this the Pepe Mona Lisa? Like, at least it's a Pepe. We know that much, the internet, of course, the internet frog meme. So it's quite, I think it was actually, I've never done the frog, from my own personal perspective as an artist. But, a legitimate, and I've never really highlighted too much, except for Purple Drank. I have highlighted, I haven't been a purist about it. It's a authentic part of the internet, we have to admit. But yeah, sometimes it can be seen as like an easy way to get sales. But here I find it's very legit in the sense of, there's this whole history on Bitcoin. We were talking about this in last week's space, or from actually Wednesday's space with Joe Rogan's dad, Counterparty. There's this whole history of this frog, Pepe, on Bitcoin. So for a first work, as far as I understand, and we'll take a look in a second so you know what I mean, as for a first work on, it's kind of cool, right? And it's quite beautiful, I might add. Again, we see the power of the process. The power of the process. And what do we see? Just to remind ourselves here. I suspect, this is a Pepe put through or created, perhaps, with Stable Diffusion and then the Cellular automata, the Python script that Canik Zapata uses using Terminal, back to building our own tools on Bitcoin, small file size. Let me show you the normal size here. Let me show you, this is the real life size, so to speak. And this should, I think we have here what could be called pixel art. And it's a little, in a sense, fuzzy with me, because what I'm doing is not a nearest neighbor transform here. I'm just doing a magnifying glass on a Brave, on the browser. But if you were to put this into Photoshop, this, I believe, would scale. This looks like, again, this wonderful, tantalizing sci-fi marriage between pixel art, building your own tools, and putting it on Bitcoin. Again, I was at art exhibitions yesterday, cool art exhibitions, famous people. And yeah, I just think about what we're doing, and it just feels like, again, another planet, and in a good way. So incredibly exciting. Look at the color, by the way. Interesting color. And interesting texture. Again, just finally, Like, let's say you want to do a Pepe. Okay, like, what are you going to do? It kind of looks like the Mona Lisa Pepe, based on the bust here, if I had to guess, but I don't know. I can't remember. But, you do a Pepe. This is a pretty original. And thanks to, I'd say, in large part to the process. Look at how original and textured this is. Right? Like, this is, frankly, gorgeous. And the color kind of makes it. Almost these pink lips here. But red here. Again, this is using tools that it's almost like putting it into the random machine. You put parameters. It's almost using a little bit of algorithmic art with the cellular automata. It's almost like it's incorporating programming, but it's not pure programming here. This is saying, if I understand what's happening here right, okay, Stable Diffusion, make me a Pepe of XYZ, and then maybe putting it into, I assume, and then putting it into, the cellular automata process, and then this is the result. It's not like Canix-Zapata made every little brushstroke here, but Canix-Zapata has created the parameters for this work to exist, right? So it's not, I wouldn't call it, and there's an editing function. We're kind of back to the artist as editor, which is part of, I would argue, AI, right? This is how, we're discussing this, I think, in the last couple of shows, where this is a good way to understand what's going on with artists who use AI. It's the artist as editor. It's a different kind of role. And you could argue that programming and, incorporating programming, kind of, parameters, so to speak, is kind of bringing in this editing component, you could argue. And again, I'm kind of back to Rauschenberg and John Cage, using chance. What was the guy who was friends with both of them, who did who was a dance kind of guy in New York, who escapes me. But again, using chance as an element, and you see how triumphant, frankly, Rauschenberg was using chance, right? And a lot of people use chance, but he was a particularly good user of chance. So you wouldn't say a pure, I would argue, there was still an editing component, there was still a virtuosity. And I think we could see something analogous going on here, for the sake of argument. So interesting. And final piece I want to just mention on this. Look at this kind of classic AI frame here. That's kind of there, but not, right? It's almost like some weird crop. And again, one of these weird phenomena you see with AI. And just a final observation here. Look at the gray patterning. And I love, it's almost like it takes the white, but because of the cellular automata thing, technique that Canix-Zapata was actually detailing in an earlier comment, probably just taking the color so it goes into the eyes too, but creates this kind of interesting decision, right? It's kind of nice. It almost takes a decision for the artist, and all the artist has to do to a certain degree, once they've kind of mastered their process or put a process together, is go, yeah, they can go, yes. Look at the necklace here. So very interesting, and almost this landscape again. So again, kind of seemingly a kind of Mona Lisa of sorts. So let's see what's going on. We went full Satoshi. So Canix-Zapata may not have gotten a ton of views here. You may not have seen this because the link is in here, right? The dilemma of the digital artist on X is, do you put the link? It depends what you're trying to do. And finally, here it is on Gammas. So I believe Canix-Zapata has gone through here, create collection, I think is what happened. So cellular automata portraits, this is still available. The mint fees are pretty expensive right now. I brought up the mempool, it was at something like 5. Which is kind of high, so I would kind of wait for that to go down. I don't know how long it's going to mint for, but there's only 7 minted, and it's only $40 when you consider what you'd pay for Canix-Zapata work on Tezos. So not a terrible price here. So all very interesting. I was going to pick one up. The fees were a little high. So I'm going to hopefully see the fees come down a bit. So also more exciting kind of news here. Thank you to the anonymous collector here who picked up this work on Gamma here. sold for 0.0175. So thank you. Awesome. And another work, going to list another work probably right away. Actually, maybe today or tomorrow. And I'll list it on Gamma. And here it is. So again, thank you for that. Very fun. I mean, it's kind of rad. I was taking advantage of the 1 to 2 V-bytes. So I minted this for like, I want to say like $20 or something, and it's a 60 kilobyte file. So again, there's urgency in my world to put out this Bitcoin video in the next day or two, because I don't want you guys to miss the opportunity here, this window of opportunity. So if it's something you're interested in, I am on it. I keep saying it's the next video. It is the next video. It's coming out this weekend. I had a delay there. Okay, awesome. Thank you for the support last show on YouTube. Let's look at the fascinating comments here. Cider, awesome to hear from you. That is Cider. Wonderful artist with that. Great. I think it was a tennis player last time. Enigma Greg, great to hear from you. Great episode. Thank you. Andrew Smrecker. Crypto and trading art, deciding who the stars are, zero credibility. Totally agree. In fact, they're way off. Yeah, and I'd say it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because again, like, what kind of credibility, to kind of restate, does someone who's been a crypto trader, like, you know, I hesitate to mention it, but it's kind of like 6529 is kind of your classic example here. Someone who gets, you know, there's a lot of people who think they're geniuses because they bought Ethereum in 2016. And there's something to be said for that. I mean, there is a certain amount of foresight, but there's also a certain amount of luck. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, because they're, you know, have $100 million in Ethereum, all of a sudden they know everything, including what the best art is and everything. And I think that's partly, you know, I think that's actually what happened. I think that's why we have this kind of weird, which could be, and nothing against, you know, there's some great artists in the Taschen book, but I think that's how we got the Taschen book, which is this really, you know, this, for lack of better terms, the canon of digital art using blockchain? You know, and so it's kind of interesting. Like, increasingly, I call it the war for digital art. Maybe it's the war for the narrative of digital art. Increasingly, I see it as actually a war for this narrative. In fact, the more I think about it. So it's kind of interesting. And I'm actually, like, again, it took me, I kind of danced around it for a long time, but I think it's important historically for people to actually, you know, to let it be known that actually you don't think that's the main narrative. You know, which is why I'm starting to mention it, because it's like, I don't want, you know, people to all of a sudden care about our scene 100 years from now, and they're like, oh, well, they agreed with everything and they just thought they were the side scene, the sideshow, so to speak. And that's not what I think at all, right? In fact, I think this is, you know, to a large degree, and of course I'm coming from my own perspective, but as I was saying, like, I don't think crypto, like, again, with what credibility do people who bought Ethereum in 2016 come in and say, this is the greatest digital art ever? I'm kind of back, like, with what, so what? You know, and trad art's a kind of an interesting one. I'd be kind of easier on them. They just don't know, is what I'd argue. They're still learning the visual language. And so they all of a sudden are approached and they look at the numbers. And they go, oh, okay, they're selling, Beeple sells for $69 million. That must be what is considered the best. So we'll give a book to these guys. But I'd argue, you know, that book has actually hurt the credibility of Taschen, I would argue. You know, is kind of how I see it. Like, does that help Taschen at all? I actually think it hurts the blockchain, artists on the blockchain. I would go so far as to say, but let's leave it there. So glad you sympathize, Andrew. Let's continue. 3 picks, FYI, on meme coins, parasitic phenomenon. Stay great and keep it up. And we have actually a little bit more on this. Thank you. Thank you for the comment. Okay. Let me catch my breath here. Okay. On X, huge, nice response. Thank you for the response. And here are the comments. Deggy D, I'm truly sorry for your loss. Thank you. The fact that you're continuing with your podcast despite everything means a lot and resonates deeply. Nothing but respect for that. Well, thank you. And it's good to, you know, I think it's good in situations like that to just keep going, because what are you going to do, right? In a sense, I'm glad to be back in Berlin too. Just change the narrative a little bit. My mom also traveled to, Phoenix, and I think that's good. But thank you for the comments. I want to pick up on Nietrich's comment. I also truly believe that the most exciting developments in the contemporary art scene are happening right here, right now, in our little niche NFT space. And it's interesting. Like, again, I went out yesterday, and to me, it's not even in the same ballpark. Like, and then also, like, I went to this show. Is at Hetzler, Max Hetzler, famous top 10 gallery in the world. And I went to the show, and I was kind of like I'm just used to not, like, it just didn't resonate at all. And I thought, okay. It's a bronze sculpture with a vulture on it, of a tree with a vulture on it. Whatever, right? And so I'm just used to that now, that it doesn't even, like, it's just not relevant to me. And this is, again, and I was being told later, like, Adrian, these are famous artists. Like, I actually got to meet the artists, they were telling me. Like, I was like, oh, okay. And then there's people from Hamburger Bahnhof there, and, the director of, this sort of thing, which is the main contemporary art museum, so it's quite interesting. So as I said in my response, like, I continue to be surprised at how well this scene performs compared to when I go to contemporary art museums or major galleries. I continue to just be surprised at, like, gosh, at how interesting it is here. So anyways, thanks for mentioning that. For centuries, art has followed a narrative or a quest. Up until modernism, the dominant pursuit was to depict reality in the most convincing way. This is a really interesting discussion here, because pre-photography, up until modernism, or you could argue the camera, in a sense, you could argue the camera, but modernism, the camera, about the same time, and artworks were often evaluated based on their role within the overarching narrative. Interestingly, the past century, different artistic movements emerged, each with its own guiding story that brought artists together and drove innovation. But in the last 30 years, this shared narrative seems to have dissolved, giving way to what many call pluralism. Sure, or perhaps postmodernism. Right. I mean, there's a pluralist, there's a multitude of narratives now, almost a fragmentation, where artworks exist more on their own terms rather than as a part of a collective artist or conceptual direction. Right. And this also speaks to this kind of revolt, revolt, so to speak, or rejection of the canon, so to speak, or this response, and this whole, Eurocentric and all the isms. So, yes. I believe what's happening now in our little scene might be the beginning of a new narrative, one where artists actively engage with and build upon each other's work. For now, it's a small bubble with more people dismissing it than taking it seriously, indeed. But the same was true when the first Impressionists emerged. I completely agree with this. It was only a matter of time before critics recognized that something truly groundbreaking was happening. And it's interesting. Like, we should look at actually the history of Impressionism and how many years it actually took. And all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, maybe we're kind of on schedule out here. This week, I plan to start writing a new article exploring and defining this emerging narrative in our emerging new space. I look forward to sharing it with you soon. So looking forward to that, Daggy D. And just, isn't it great to see Daggy D here on the timeline and putting comments out and still buying up a storm, as we're going to see. So let's continue. Trippy Collector, visionary art. Never heard the term before, but sounds right up my alley. I imagine, Trippy. And happy birthday to Trippy Collector. I saw it was their birthday. Always learning the most watching. So thanks, Adrian. You're welcome. Sending you and the whole Poco family tons and tons of love. Always good vibes from Trippy Collector there. Great to hear from you. Little Cakes. Didn't realize Hasdrubal Kujeb had a YouTube account. The Kujeb radio playlist is pretty great. I'll have to check that out. That sounds amazing, actually. Dance Vitar, thank you, Cakes. Dance Vitar, GM, great to hear from you. Robert Flood, enjoying your show. Well, thank you. Great to hear from you, Robert. Cyber Mystic Garden, or Marcelo Pinel, who we started the show with. Awesome to hear from you. Well, thank you so much for an in-depth analysis of my work and for kindly comparing my work to Master Alex Gray. Art is a process of self-discovery, and your analysis always adds value to me. This really has a different, almost holographic chrome, and I intend to explore, really, thank you, and I intend to explore it more. Really, thank you very much. You're absolutely welcome. And what a thrill to have Marcelo Pinel, this amazing artist, actually watch and reply. So thank you for that. Pedro Jose, spitting facts out, brother. F the money. Having a rich life, it's all that counts at the end of the rainbow. Having a rich life is all that counts. You know, it's interesting. Money is a very interesting topic, which we will continue to discuss. Thank you, Pedro Jose. I'm noting that one. Collector Official, awesome to hear from you. This wonderful person, give this person a follow. Thanks again for that awesome profile the other day. Ernesto Ash, thank you for the mention. My pleasure, Ernesto. Thank you for watching. And Martin Czechowski. Oh, come on, it really does. Don't get me wrong. I wish it didn't, but still. So I think referring to money. So the debate continues here, and we will continue it, but not today because we're already 20 minutes in. So interesting developments here in the mempool. So another reason I have to speed up this Bitcoin video. We're already at 4 or 5 VBytes. Now, you can get it as low as 2, but you got to be careful with that. Like, put it this way. Just a little preview of the Bitcoin video. You here, if it's at 4, sometimes you want to do 1 VByte higher. Or what I would do is wait for it to be at 2 and then put it at 3 VBytes. And I'll explain why right here, because it was at 1 VByte on the weekend, and hopefully it returns right back there. But so I put it in, and this is where my transaction is. And so it's last. I was like, wow, a 12 kilobyte file for $3. That's like really cheap. And I guess this is where it is now, 50,000 transactions behind. We'll see if it ever gets minted out or inscribed. So you have to be careful with that. So generally what you want to do is wherever it is, add a VByte if you kind of want to ensure it to go through. And usually that'll put it in the next block. Luke 500 sent this out, and I thought this was interesting. The Art Price 100 index of blue chip artists loses 8.3% in 2024. So let's see. So here's the S&P 500, which is doing fabulously, and you're starting to see Art Price 100, and you see a dip while the S&P goes up. So isn't that interesting? Kind of confirming a lot of what we've seen as far as articles and auctions in the last year, right, in 2024. And interestingly, I mean, if you get your little technical analysis and draw the line, this is going to be the interesting point, I think, right here. If you draw the line, will it break the trend? All right. And that'll be interesting to see, because if it does, that's when we're really, where it could really drop in theory. Maybe this is another level here. You know, it's funny, technical analysis, what James Dines, the well-known financial newsletter writer, now passed, great thinker, called visual analysis. It's one of my favorite it's the most objective way, I'd argue, of reading financial markets. Anyways, let's not get distracted by that, but interesting to see this. They are kind of, you might say, art is further out on the risk curve as far as investments. I think it works out really well for what we're doing out here in terms of the art is still very reasonably priced. I mean, for the amount that some people are paying for one, far out contemporary work that, sculpture or installation, they could buy like a whole library or museum of works on Tezos still. So very interesting. Speaking of Tezos, Joanna, Serene Obscurity. Okay, I'm just going to say it, let it marinate for 3.5 days. Bringing a person over from ETH to market for Objkt does not sit right with me. I've never seen Objkt boast so much about big sales as I've seen in the last few days. Goodbye. So I think referring to Rob from Foundation, also Maker's Place, I mean, this is what I would say. The way I see it is, if you do think of it in a sense as a war for the narrative, what I think, to be generous, but I think real and accurate, is what Objkt has done. They put a general in over there in this war, and hey, let's see how he does. Like, if all of a sudden this is helping business, let's see. I actually, it's not a bad thing to mix it up. And I do think, look, Rob is, as I've mentioned before, is a hustler, right? And certain things come with being a hustler. But to a certain degree, you have to respect the hustle, right? I would say, the hustle is important, right? Like, I've started release more work, say, on social media almost daily, right? Not quite daily. I kind of got distracted there, but almost daily. in the last few weeks. And that's actually all of a sudden, okay, all of a sudden there's a show to do, a couple of opportunities, right? The work is selling. So it's kind of like bringing in a new general in a war is kind of how I see it. Let's see how they perform. Let's see, maybe it's good for Objkt, right? So I understand the concern, which is ETH has made it, I would argue, to overgeneralize. ETH has made it all about the money and pumping the bags, so to speak, as we discussed with Joe Rogan's dad on Wednesday. So I understand the concern, but I think there's good intentions behind what Rob does, and there's something to be said for the hustle. So I get it. But I would say give Rob a chance, is sort of my take on it. And it's always been nothing but nice. I mean, definitely kind of forward on the hustle, but that's okay. Sometimes you need those people, to really just kind of smash through. So I'd say keep an open mind, and I'd focus on the art. And this is another incredibly important thing as we move to our next comment here, who, of course, I follow, Manny. A lot of people mad at Objkt. I will continue to use it because it works for me. And speaking of credibility, like if anybody has won credibility since like 2022, when like this is another thing. Isn't it great that Objkt exists, that Rob can actually continue to do his work? Because like it's true for a lot of us artists out here. Like, where would this blockchain scene be without Objkt? We have to ask ourselves, and are we going to all of a sudden go, oh, Objkt is the problem here? Because they hired some guy who worked on Ethereum projects? So I think it's like, careful what you wish for. Oh, I'm not going to use Objkt anymore. Like, really? So like in a sense, or I'm only going to mint on Taya now. It's like, I would be, again, like, I think we have to be grateful with all the platforms that have disappeared. Like most of the major ones, for all of the platforms that have disappeared, we have to be really happy. And we want Objkt to succeed. Because really, it's providing us with actually the most reliable collecting. That league of collectors. And they've made it, I would say they've won credibility by sticking around and making it about the art as much as they can. They're running a business. And so they have to be able to keep paying. The fact that they can hire anybody right now is good, right? And who knows if they can even afford it. These NFT marketplaces are not exactly the strongest businesses right now. So maybe they're even taking a chance here financially. So all to say, I would be grateful for Objkt, is I guess my conclusion here. We're very, very lucky, and they have built enough credibility where they can, put a controversial general over here in the war, in this part of the war, and see how it performs, right? Xerox, this is kind of funny. I thought this was hilarious, actually. Tezos is really the long-suffering wife of a philandering, malcontent husband who has been with every mid-platform on every disparate chain, but crawls back to bed every night, regardless, telling her how great she is. And it is kind of funny. And again, we have to be grateful to the people at Objkt for really keeping this show on the road, particularly the people like who own it, who are financing it. They've made a lot of good decisions in the past, so there is a credibility. So I wouldn't not support the platform, because careful what you wish for over here. But kind of funny as we talk about Bitcoin. But it's not like I won't mint on Objkt, right? It's just I'm just excited about Bitcoin. Final thing, though. Like, if I were Objkt, I would be thinking about Bitcoin and, stacks. Is there a way to mint for 20 cents on Bitcoin? This came up on the space. Because here's the vision. Imagine if Objkt existed on a layer 2 on Bitcoin, say on stacks, which seems to be the de facto layer 2. I mean, how incredible and exciting would that be? And it may be like the only thing I really see being able to take out Objkt is if Bitcoin kind of takes off, which I think is totally possible. If all of a sudden you can do like a 2-cent mint like you can on Tezos, right? Because then all of a sudden the question is, why would you mint anywhere other than Bitcoin? Right, is what the question is. So if I were Objkt, I'd be thinking ahead and being like, what is our Bitcoin strategy if this becomes the place? speculative, just thoughts. Wak, who of course I follow, I no longer believe, referring to Zora, I still believe. So just trolling here, kind of funny though. And this is just finally, so Leonidas, I am a dog holder, by the way. It's the only meme I have, as far as I know. Exposing the Solana cabal. I'm pretty sure it's the only meme I have, which is the main meme on Bitcoin. And I'm not a big meme person. I do like dog, though. And this isn't an endorsement or anything, but I thought this was interesting. Exposing the Solana cabal. The top influencers in the Solana ecosystem have been insider trading, doing paid promotions, and pumping and dumping meme coins, which has cost retail investors billions of dollars. So to me, this sounds accurate. Who knows? It sounds accurate to me from everything we're seeing. I think it resonates. This will resonate with people. And so this is why I've always kind of been, I think it's good to minimize the crypto side of things, because this thing, as we see, it hasn't gotten better. It seems to be getting worse. This kind of, crypto ecosystem, and this, it seems to be increasingly, it's always been a Hunger Games, but it seems to be getting more of a blood sport from a financial perspective, and kind of more corrupt, or let's call it more cynical. So finally, I will break down exactly what is happening. If you launch a Solana meme coin and want the top influencers to give it any attention, you must pay them off. It is illegal for influencers to do paid shills without disclosing it, so they get around this by simply buying the tokens before everyone else can. This either comes in the form of being shared moments before it will be posted publicly, or by receiving a token warrant that values the meme coin at a very low market cap. If a meme coin is going to be worth $100 million and the creator gives you access to buy it at $100,000, that is paid promo, and the fact that the influencer is buying it is just a technicality. So, all to say, there's all sorts of shady business going on. And Leonidas, who launched the dog, who has his own interests, but who's launched his own meme coin, but kind of a fair launch, I think is what they call it. Anyways, just more reasons I would argue to kind of, as an artist, you don't want to necessarily, again, do you want to call yourself a crypto artist in this environment? It's kind of like another way of framing it. And I've never called myself a crypto artist because I've never been a crypto artist. I'm an artist that puts work, and I use blockchain technology. I use crypto to sell it, so to speak. If you even call Bitcoin a crypto, I think you could. The biggest crypto. But you see what I'm saying? I think there's benefits to kind of minimizing the risk from for lack of a better term, from a PR perspective for those outside the ecosystem. Because if this whole thing kind of blows up, where's that going to leave you if you've kind of married yourself to it, so to speak? So I prefer it to be kind of an accidental component. And frankly, even with platforms to a certain degree, much as I love Objkt, it's sort of like one of the seductive aspects of Bitcoin is I don't even need to mint it on Gamma. I can just use Ordiscan, and that's what I'll show on the video is this is how you do it on Ordiscan, and you don't owe anybody anything. You don't need to sign any terms and conditions, right? So let's continue. CloudVamp. So the Christie's AI auction is today. Just installed the junk machine at Christie's Inc. for the exhibition that opens tomorrow, or at least the exhibition opens. I have to say, people are going to be shocked. It's huge. Goes over many decades, multiple interactive works, sculptures. So let's see what happens here. It sounds like that very controversial AI art auction is today. And here's Rosatio. Thank you for posting in the community, unpacking prints and physicals from storage. So isn't this cool? This looks like a collage or something that has been done on a piece of cardboard, which is interesting. And these look fabulous over here. So interesting physicals here from Rosatio. So very cool here. And this is Martin Bruce, macro shots of a staple going through paper. Not sure. Oh, wow. This is a staple going through paper. Wow. And then this is what Martin Bruce is using. That is crazy. I thought this was some sort of scientific, I guess it is probably scientific photography. How amazing is that? So the incredible Martin Bruce here, and we have another one of one. And who'd this go to? This went to Absurdity. Only 80 Tezos, one bid. South Trip. So more just amazing work here by Martin Bruce to kind of open the show here. Again, And so very cool. And again, we see these kind of sampled 3D kind of objects kind of dragged along and beautiful and mixing photography and again, all sorts of wonders. Edition of 1. Here is Moranicle.exe. Fall in love maybe with a computer. Let's see. Pretty fun little operating system falling to pieces. Cool work here. What is this? Edition of 15, sold out at $330, so pretty reasonable price there. So sold out. And here is Mo SHIT, edition of 1. Let's see this. This is from February 16th, shader test. Let us see what is happening here. So no volume. Just a audio, so interesting. Kind of looks like tiling here, which is also kind of interesting. And then a little bit of video within this cloud. So interesting work here from Mo, who I haven't seen from for a while, so good to see their work here. This is Felix Pencil, also known as Peintre. And these are just a couple of works. I'm not sure if this is AI. It kind of looks like AI if you look at the hands here. It seems these 3 4-fingered hands. And also this work looks like AI here as well. Interesting series here. Enjoying the Beauty, edition of 1 and not listed yet. Here's another one. Artsy Pusher with 2 pieces. So interesting. I think, if I'm not mistaken, these are probably Felix Pencil's work, but I'm not positive about that. Pixel-powered mischief wrapped in museum-grade disrespect. Rules don't apply to art. They never have. So putting out this whole series here, I thought this was pretty interesting, pretty original. And again, we're seeing these, like, I assume this is AI that is working it. And it doesn't look exactly like AI. Maybe it's because of the texture here. It does seem to hide some of the AI distortions. So not exactly sure what's happening here, but it's no rules applied. But it's interesting, isn't it? And there's a whole manifesto that Felix Pencil has written here. I'll just read the first declaration. I declare that the distinction between human and machine creativity is an illusion maintained by those who profit from artificial scarcity. And I think of La Métrie, the man-machine, that was an famous 18th century work, where the argument was made, it was the ultimate kind of, Enlightenment argument against the notion of the soul, right? It's all matter. It's all physicality, as my face freezes here on this machine. Let's keep going. Feels. Defresh, edition of 8. This just came out, so how cool is this? And Feels selling for quite a bit. 77 Tezos here. And so another really cool kind of animated abstract from a really kind of early artist on Hen, and really does well on X. Interesting artist. We can look deeper at their work on another show when we aren't so late in the day here. Cream Safa, Celestial 7. So Cream Safa putting out 8 or 10 works, actually. I picked a few here just at random, really. So editions of 10 at 10 Tezos each. And so Cream Safa, noted for the pixel art factory, the pioneer, really, of the pixel art factory genre. As you see, putting out a bunch of works here, Celestial 1 through 10 on Tezos. Here's just a couple more, Celestial 5. So cool kind of experimentation here, and as you see, very interesting work, as ever, from Cream Safa. 216 by 216, 2 colors, so multiplied by 5. Again, I'm kind of back to Bitcoin, but now the fees are getting higher. The video is coming, so usually fees go down on the weekend. Here's another tip for people that are interested, because I know there are some people are starting to reach out, like, where's the video, or how do I do this? So I'm on it. Hopefully tomorrow. Celestial 6, edition of 10. So here, another work here by Cream Safa, and here's Celestial 4 by Cream Safa. And so, cool series. Here's Haiti Rocket, 427, so some more kind of pixelation here. taking what looks like kind of a crypto punk, but maybe with a McDonald's hat or something, some kind of red hat here, and creating his own version here that's pixelated, the ever energetic Haiti Rocket, and selling a few at 690, still available. And here was a rad, the master, really one of the masters, but really like one of the great masters of the glitch ROM. I was very close to starting with this. I loved the message here. Get ready, and here an alien and just minimal kind of animation, and then of course hacking the text here. Gorgeous work as ever. Gorgeous canvas, I want to say, from Haiti Rocket. So those who were quick got in, like Absurdity and Martin Joe got in for 13 Tezos, and classically, and then just burning it, within minutes, probably the rest of the supply. Here's Uxine, who of course I follow and love the text here. So some mushrooms here and coloring outside the lines. Right, very powerful technique here and some beautiful colors. So fun work by Uxine. Here's Slava 3. Breadwinner of Offspring. This is on Objkt, edition of 22. So another kind of Objkt Tezos artist that has released across multiple blockchains. And here you see almost like old Mac here, kind of fits well with Uxine's work, and the kind of angel wings or some kind of wings, dropping the diskette and the heart, kind of fun work. Again, another artist whose work we could kind of go back into, the black and white, some wonderful work from that artist. Gogolitis, Shrouded in Light, another very fun work here. I kind of like what this work represents in a lot of ways. It's kind of like, what Kyle Flemmer is doing as well, this kind of pixel art representation of space. I love it, because again, I'm kind of like, the art in 200 years when people are on spaceships, like, again, what are they going to have? Like, it's almost like, imagine 200-year-old pixel art. What are they going to put on the screens? What do they want to collect? Pretty cool. Manidal, Sleep Mode. So edition of 40 for 350. And again, you see the genius of Manidal's color ability to color here and making it all look easy. Again, if I own Hallmark, I am just, and I mean that in the greatest sense, it's almost like an old Apple computer here. Like, I mean, again, this has, like, if I'm Hallmark creative director, or whatever you want to call it, art director, Manidal, can you do something for us? Especially, they can do digital cards by Manidal. I mean, all you have to do is like happy birthday on top. Anyway, I don't want to make it sound like it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work, which is why I always show it here. Great artist. Figments Reboot, also known as Cap'n. Love what's going on here. This kind of painterliness here as it starts to disintegrate the image here. And again, this tiny work, Reboot, Touchgrass. I saw in one of the response to Manny's tweet was like, why are people mad at Objkt? From Cap'n. That was hilarious. Why on earth would you be mad at... Yeah, exactly. Reboot Touchgrass. So cool. Very cool work. That is new on Objkt. Windows Still Life. This is by John. Kind of, again, like huge following on X and on Tezos and other places. Also on Rodeo was making huge. So yeah, interesting. So this Windows, again, kind of iconic for this artist. Cool work here with the fruit kind of moving through it. Windows Still Life edition of 25, only 42 Tezos, selling out at 25 Tezos. So nice work there. Zophie Ogor, edition of 10. And let's see if we can make this big enough. So interesting work here. Again, these delightfully tiny pieces by Zophie Ogor. Yeah, let's see if we can. Okay, everything is still running here. Good. Edition of 10. One sold. So still available on Objkt. Here is Nov 1914. Mr. Bezold picking up another one at only 16 Tezos. Edition of 1. And picking up some flowers here by the wonderful Nov 1914. This is interesting. This is a more complex kind of flower work here. It's quite delightful, isn't it? And like the double frame is quite interesting too here, but this is quite interesting. This is like, I don't know, it feels like there's a bit more detail. so to speak. Very, very, very interesting work here. It's always interesting with Nuv. Cartel, interesting title, and kind of looks like a car, can't tell. Interesting, maybe an abstract. Cool work here. It's an edition of 1, available for 15 Tezos, so you can pick up a Nuv 1 of 1. Here is PP Universal with Neon Monk and Genesis, which I think is Absurd Deity, picking one up. And Prodigy Universal, so of course that famous, what was the name of that album? That came out in the 90s, I remember that, with what looks like a blunt here with the crab. So PP Universal out of Buenos Aires. Edition of 3 sold out, so nice work there. Continuing on, if it loads, and here's the myth. Artists making their own tools. So this is using, I believe, is it the waffle tool that Santiago made, also known as Times, on Objkt, I think. So interesting. Again, we hear of Waffles making his own tools. We see Canik Zapata. This is a very important trend. Again, I call it like a structural trend, or what's the word? A secular trend, so to speak. It's just, and I'd go across the arts. This is going to happen, but digital art definitely has a place for it. So that's the myth. That is at auction, by the way. So interesting piece here. Endless Vacation. So again, kind of looks like a sampled brush. From Wash Memetics, Why Did You Leave Web3? Here's Stulka, and I brought up a few works by Stulka for us. So new work. Big fan of Stulka's work. Kind of looks like perhaps a portrait of Stulka using this kind of framing device of what looks like Microsoft Paint or something equivalent. Edition of 100 for 2 Tezos. I should really pick one of these up. Here, I wanted to show some of Stulka's work, actually. So this is some of the old work. For those that might not be familiar, like here's just a quick tour, Cleanse My Sins. What I love about Stulka's work, it's like this contemporary illustration, kind of from a female perspective. And I just think to me, it feels like, again, this whole contemporary illustration genre is super interesting. There's another artist, I want to say Astra 4 or something. So a really cool work. This is November 9th, 2021. This is also mint November 9th, 2021. Like, this is tempting to call this like a bit of a masterpiece here. This is delightful. I think it's expensive if you want to buy it on secondary. Maybe you put it on an offer. I wish I owned it. Like, again, you think of the museum in your mind. Chill the Beans, Waste Time, Spend Well, edition of 10. 88 Tezos, maybe that is probably the right price. I sold for 15 Tezos 2 years ago. But gorgeous, gorgeous work here. Here's another one. Just a date. Again, contemporary illustration, edition of 50. You could probably put in an offer and get this for cheaper than 50 Tezos. But there's something I just really love about this. It's like, it's an art of the present, to quote J.G. Ballard. Let's continue. I don't smoke. Again, just these are scenes from our lives, right? You go to the art opening, someone asking if they have a smoke and you don't smoke. Really, really cool and kind of nicely stylized. Human 001, almost like it's out of one of these kind of books from the 80s where you just kind of put stuff together, or like a sticker book or who knows what. Edition of 30. So just a super exciting artist, someone in their bedroom, playing the guitar. It's just awesome. This is another one, Choose Your Bandmate, which is kind of cool. Who would you want to be in your band? And beautifully, the color also. Edition of 1. Wow. What hat did I buy that? I did accepted an offer for 20 Tezos. Wow. 2 years ago. That is hilarious. And look who else is back. Flora Marquez. Mundango Republic, The Rain. So this is awesome. Edition of 10 for 5 Tezos. Another great artist. Thrilled to see Flora Marquez back. I believe out of Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. So new stamp works, or Mundango works. Here is Tornado Rodriguez, Love for Scams. So scams are in the air. With all of the Argentina, the Libra coin, And easy come, easy go. Yeah, so commentary coming on the whole meme coin market and how it's not really working out for most people. Edition of 15 and still available for 444. Here is Jake Studios, 2030 drones taking shrooms. So interesting combination here. And interesting, what I love partly, one of the things I love about Jake Studios' work is the prolificness, because as you're more prolific, you start to just take more chances and try different things. I think he makes a work in a day, if I'm not mistaken. So it's like, okay, what am I going to do today? And it's just like, okay, I'll make a kind of fuzzy background, just trying different things. And so just really cool. I don't know where the shrooms are. This kind of looks like the Jake Studios guy and someone on top. But again, kind of stream of consciousness, illustration. Available for 44 Tezos. Pretty reasonable for a Jake Studios 1 of 1. As we continue, Daniel W. False Prophet. And so again, edition of 10, and again, you see these kind of almost financial kind of bars here. And you wonder, is there a kind of reference here to the meme coin situation? 5 Tezos and almost sold out. This was cool. This is Kubila Yodabas. And I think you could call this contemporary illustration. Time to scroll, edition of 15. And here's someone just seemingly scrolling in their bed here with the light of the phone. Again, a very contemporary kind of scene. I consider it a genre, contemporary illustration, because for whatever reason, and Tornado actually echoed, like I put that out as a thesis early on in the show, like a couple hundred, like the first year. And Tornado agreed with this sentiment. Like, for whatever reason, illustration and kind of contemporary situations, like where a Nintendo, game controller with like a glass of wine. I'm thinking of Astra, A-S-T-R, I want to say with a 4. Let's see. Yeah, Astra Karma. Another interesting artist here who I haven't seen a ton from. Stuff like this, right? Again, contemporary illustration. When's this from? May 14th, 2024. It'd be great to see them back. You know what I'm saying? Just interesting. Kind of, you think of Noel, I think it's Ferrier too, who does the oil paintings of the McDonald's and whatnot. Let's continue. Quantized Television. This is Rural Idol, edition of 3. As we see another reference to the hill here, which is kind of like, I believe, a sigil, if I'm not mistaken, for Rural Idol. Last of these finger-painted train imagining. So finger painting, interesting. Yeah, and there's sigil. So edition of 3, only 250 from Rural Idol. So 1 gone, so 2 available. And this is 1 Pez. I think this was posted in the community, if I'm not mistaken. Symbolic Being. Interesting kind of experimental illustration here. Cool colors. And again, just trying different things here. Pretty cool edition of 10. That's part of Neutro Arts collective drop there out of Buenos Aires. Awesome. And 3 gone so far. And edition of 10. Here is LXTXCX Victor Arche, 5 p.m. Cool work here, isn't it? So how are we doing for time? We got 7 minutes. We got to kind of run, but cool looking work here. Clouds and whatnot. Created in 2017. Reward for first 100 members of the Tezos Club 2025. Here is Rannick Steer with a cool gradient work also, which could hang beside that other work that we just saw from LXCXTX. So great to see new work from Rannick Steer on Objkt, 4 gone so far. Here's Sols with another 1 of 1 songs. Nice piece here. And you almost see the word songs here. Interesting artist. Desert Island, this is Dan Control. With some new works, great to see Dan Control on the scene here. Quite a large work, adding the drop shadow, or adding a shadow, interestingly, on these works. So interesting concepts here. Some cigarettes on a desert island. Interesting. Here is Sponge Bro. This went to Daggy D. 150 Tezos, 1 of 1. Again, playing with this new kind of style here. So interesting work out here. Adding kind of like more kind of fills within these earlier, I don't know if this is an earlier work, but within maybe, but there may be a retooling of sorts. I think these are older. It almost looks like the Cellular automata. doesn't it? But it's not. I think it's a different process because the cellular automata have different patterning. Interesting work here by Dan Control, always. And here's Wozo. Thanks to Light for Cinema. Yuri J picked this one up. Gorgeous work. Love the cinema. Cinema turns to nature. Turns to jungle almost. And look at that bird. And the bird's on the screen. I mean, magical. Magical, magical. We have to run. Let's continue here. That went for 170 Tezos. Nice sale. Let's continue. We have 5 minutes. Here's Mumbleboy, System Holdovers. Nice piece, great color. Kind of playing around a bit here in the background. Almost this pixelated. Very, very interesting. Contrasting with these kind of more organic forms of the collage in the middle. That's an edition of 3 that looks sold out. One going to Daggy Dean, one going to Trippy Collector. Here's Scamra. View post engagements. So nice, kind of interesting, almost pixelated version of the larger kind of stable diffusion portrait here. View post engagements, edition of 1, available for 100 Tezos. And here's Canix with some new works here. I'm going to breeze through them because we don't have much time. But again, we see these awesome textures, stable diffusion, and the cellular automata. So again, just seeming to do no wrong here. Just rad. Love this. She's an early pixel artist. Nice canvases, as I like to say. Here's another one. And these are, you see, just all the different patterns in here. It's just awesome. And of course, we started with Canix. I should have put these in at the beginning there, but we had other stuff going on. Okay, more just awesome textures and everything. Lots to love here. Here's Sky Goodman, also with the Neutro Collective drop. And here we see the 4-second animation. So cool work here from Sky Goodman, and this is an edition of 15. Here is Psychofuturist, a monkey in a monkey's mask. And so a monkey and a skeleton, cool animation here. Psycho Collabs, edition of 30. Here's Heel Monster. I think Rob from Foundation posted this. So cool work here. I think we've looked at one of their works before. Cool blue and white. Cool artist. Edition of 20. Now, so selling out. Like, I mean, that might have helped. So Rob D, I think there's a big following there too. In a sense, if it's pushing the art, maybe that's good. Ed Woods, Pump Dot Flush. So cool work here. Another kind of nice kind of canvas here. This one buffering. If you've ever had a desk job, which you hate, maybe you'll relate to this. So again, more pesky kind of work. Cool. Really puts his own spin on it. That's an edition of 15. Here is Yurin Yakon. So another cool kind of pixelated stream, seemingly. Really gorgeous textures there. Here's Renki Ogawara. So another beautiful one of one from Renki, available for 30 Tezos, listed. Here's Libro. So nice work here. That is on Objkt Moire 08, edition of 5. And is that sold out or unlisted? You could probably put an offer, though. This is, I think, Gaspard de la Guerre. Thank you for posting this in the community. This is on Rodeo. Interesting canvas here, a combination of different textures and organic forms. Here's Tugcan, Indigo Dream. Kind of looks like AI, doesn't it? We'll see if it loads up, and as we scream to the finish here. Here is No Hygiene, picked up by Diggy D. Gorgeous piece here. This also could have started the show so easily. Such a great artist. No Hygiene. Really going, I went from skeptical to like full on No Hygiene. That's the power of releasing a lot of work. So great canvases here by No Hygiene, one of ones. Here's Neural Divine. In our closing seconds here, beautiful AI artwork. Here is LB. Cool artwork here. This is called Installation. I quite like this piece. Bosque Gracias, Colorful Mess number 18. So another work from Bosque Gracias Workshop. Here's Ex Mortal. As we close in on the finish here. Dream Echo sold out, I believe. Here is Salawaki. This is hilarious. Someone on the phone. Really nicely done there. So great work there. Here's Demon Ego. They cannot see which direction is right. This is part of the Objkt 1 drop. So super interesting there. And here it is. So you can find that on Objkt 1. And here's Burka Bayram. It looks like a live drawing, so to speak, as an NFT. And here is Ed Marola, who of course I followed. It looks like everything is soft, doesn't it? Or everything is soft work, inspired by her. Thank you for joining me. Until next time, take care.